honor to have Mayor Belcher in the Michigan Theater today, because 40 years ago, when Lou was 40,
That's good.
the Michigan Theater was saved. And these days, everyone just assumed that, of course, you would save this theater, right? It's an old theater, lots of people go to it, it's great. But back in 1979, when this theater was saved, most of the community was either against saving it or ambivalent about saving it. And there were a group of enthusiastic individuals who had spent a lot of time and energy, all volunteer, restoring the organ. And Henry Aldridge represents those folks. And Henry Aldridge, the organ folks understood that the theater was going to be changed. They heard it was going to be changed into a lot of things. But what it was going to be turned into was a food court. A food court. The Michigan Theater is a food court. That was the legitimate commercial use that was about to be executed inside this building. And they thought that might be a bad idea, especially since they spent all that time restoring the organ and getting very comfortable in this space. And those citizens, passionate citizens, started telling folks about it. They waved the flag, and they waved the flag in front of Mayor Belcher and the city council. And city council, like the rest of Ann Arbor, was kind of like, well, meh, not a bad idea, not a good idea, I'm not really convinced. But Lou said, we've got to save the Michigan Theater. And at a great political risk to himself, putting literally a bipartisan support group, because he had to have a supermajority to make something like this happen, he went city council person by city council person and convinced the city council reluctantly to take a leadership role in saving the Michigan Theater. But wait, it doesn't stop there. In September of 1979, the Michigan Theater Foundation took over the Michigan Theater with the good graces of the city behind it. But you know what happens with these projects when a bunch of volunteers take them over? They don't know what the hell they're doing. They've got a lot of good intentions, but they don't know how to run a theater. So Henry Aldridge and John Briggs worked literally their full-time jobs, and then they worked here. And Lou was hovering over this project after having risked his political and personal financial life to save this place, hoping that it would work. They hired a manager about a year after the volunteers ran it, and that didn't go so well either. But there was a lot of moxie, there was a lot of creativity that went into it, there was a lot of business acumen, and that was led by Lou. That was led by Lou when the city stepped in to assure that it wouldn't be torn down or changed into a food court. It was Lou who encouraged the nonprofit to finance it, which they did. When that failed, it was Lou who stepped in to provide city funding. When that failed, it was Lou who had a millage put on the March 1982 election roll, and it passed 2-1 to save the theater and pay for the mortgage. And since 1982, the Michigan Theater's been on an upward trend. But it was because of Lou's leadership, his vision at the beginning, and then his diligence and effectiveness in those years subsequent. I get a lot of credit for this project, but I wasn't involved in any of that. I was hired in 1982 after the millage passed, after the incline already started. And it was Lou and the community volunteers, as represented by Henry Aldridge, and that woman over there, Margaret D. Towsley, who Lou invited to participate in the saving of the Michigan Theater. So I've determined in life that nobody gets the appropriate amount of credit. They either get too little or too much. Right now, I get too much credit for what has happened to the Michigan Theater. And Lou gets too little. And he deserves our thanks and buckets and buckets and buckets full of credit for that. And this is just one of the kind of leadership projects that he was involved with in this community. His leadership was dynamic and effective, kind of pissed some people off sometimes, but you can't make an omelet unless you break some eggs, and he knew the right eggs to break and the right things to do. And we're ever grateful to you, Lou. Happy birthday. This is the day, and I think we should sing, don't you? Yeah. All right.